Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And according to CNBC, investors pull billions from U.S. stocks in longest outflow streak since 2004. And of course, I recently reported on the fact that Ron Paul had announced also on CNBC that there's a good chance we'll see a 50% crash in stocks even in the next year, he says. And also, I went into the fact that people like Lord Rothschild, of all people, very nefarious guy, is even saying so himself because, it's not that difficult to say the sky is blue. We have gone into the negative interest rate situation as well. And obviously, this is all piling up because while fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation, both in the markets and the monetary system, there is no doubt that something big this way comes, folks. And because I am incredibly tired today, I'm going to pass it over to you, John. What do you think?
Well, what's happening is, of course, the US dollar is now weakening. We've seen that over the last couple of months where the US dollar has actually gone down in value quite drastically. So what's happening is people are moving away from the US dollar again. We're seeing them fleeing away from it because they're seeing what is obviously coming because the Fed has printed over $4 trillion to bail out all kinds of different derivative assets to save the banks. So what is happening now, and as they're saying like, oh, we're reaching new all-time highs in the stock market, it's time to get invested. And of course the fools, the general populace is getting tricked in again by the bankers. As they're selling high, you are buying high, and of course then you get a panic and sell low. That's the emotional type of trading that so many people do, and how they always lose, and how the bankers and Wall Street always wins. So what's currently happened is that $30 billion have come out the last 10 weeks, as Bank of Merrill Lynch said. And it's a substantial amount of money, and of course this is the big guys, the big wigs, the big investors that are of course moving out, and they've been doing it for a while before they started talking about this. They know that something is coming, and a lot of them are positioning themselves with substantial amounts of gold, and other assets, because they're seeing that potential turmoil. Like now, you did a video, of course, on the Americans, funding again the not necessarily the neo-Nazis, but the Ukrainian current government again, and that is,
and the rebels, which are neo-Nazis.
Yeah, so which is highly dangerous. It's like having a match right by a piece of TNT, like where you're gonna just like teasing it, suddenly it'll catch fire and then it will go off.
Well, John, how much of this coming stock crash is due to government manipulation, and how much of it is due to debt-based derivative markets?
Well, 100% is because of government manipulation, Josh. Because what has happened is, of course, they lowered the interest rates, and what that has done is it has created a realm where all these businesses, the big Wall Street firms and the big corporations, what they've done is they've gone into massive amounts of debt. You got, of course, margin debt at massive levels as never before, which is basically you are using your stock portfolio as a line of credit, and then you go in, as it increases in value, you just go and borrow more and more against your stock portfolio. So it's hugely risky, and of course a lot of people are losing their shirts when the downturn comes on that. And then of course the share buybacks from the corporations, where they get into debt, buy back their own shares to prop up the stock, the share value of their stock. So it's just pure insanity from everybody, and of course the derivatives that are underlaying all of this as well. It's just going to cause a massive turmoil when it happens. And of course today with the high frequency trading, things are going to happen very rapidly when it first happens. It goes very like the long-term capital management crash. These guys were at the top of the universe. They had a fantastic way of using mathematics to invest and so on. But then suddenly everybody started to use that model, and as everybody used that model, it's getting less and less likely to make money on it. So the problem is, at one point, everybody needs to exit from that strategy.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now. So everybody needs to exit, out of the strategy that they're currently at, using the system and using the debt. Well, when the stock market crash comes, it's going to be like you basically are going to try to, it's a massive disaster happen in your city. You're trying to flee out of the city, but you're not going to get out in time.
Yeah, it's like a tsunami coming at you. And, the thing is, while so much of this is government, people too often say, well, Trump is going to fix it. Because obviously in the last while, the news has gone crazy. Well, the stock market is way up. Everything's looking so great. And it's eerily reminiscent of, say, 2007, when we're looking at the stock market and everyone's going, wow, it's so great. Everything's going to be so great. And it's usually when that happens that the bubble bursts. And in all fields, I mean, when we're talking about the housing market, when we're talking about the auto market, the petroleum industry, I mean, we're talking everything. And I mean, people are saying, well, Trump is going to fix it. The government isn't going to fix the problems of government. Individuals fix it, but first that wall needs to come down first before individuals can fix it. So what can people do in this incredibly volatile environment to keep themselves safe?
Yeah. Well, of course, this is our opinion, but what people should do is they need to get the hell out of the way. You gotta see, like, the big guys are running out and selling it to you. To the regular people. So get out of the stock market. It's very risky, high risk right now. It's very dangerous because what's going to happen is you're going to have a massive stock collapse, and as Ron Paul said, that 50% drop is highly likely, maybe even more.
Yeah, and he's saying, like, it's possible. Don't quote anyone on it, but it's possible by October even. He was
because
saying,
of the debt ceiling, right? The U.S. have their debt ceiling. If they don't increase that debt ceiling, the U.S. are getting downgraded, and that's going to be a cascadable event into all types of financials all around the world. And things are going to start collapsing one by one. It's like that first domino or snowflake or whatever you want to call it that's going to cause that, a reaction and effect in the system. And then, of course, you sit there with the big guys sitting at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was just recently there doing a report on these crooks that are hanging out there. Their plan
Janet Yellen, Mario Draghi.
Yeah, their plan is just to buy stocks when this happens. They're literally going to buy up the whole stock market. And then suddenly you have nationalization of stock markets and communism. That's communism.
Manipulation to fix the problems of manipulation. And, it's funny because Ron Paul was on CNBC about a month ago, and at first he said it's going to be about a 25% fall, and then he said, wait a second, this is looking a lot crazier than it once did. This is going to be about a 50% drop. And on top of that, he said, well, it'll happen in the next 10 years, but even more likely it'll happen in the next year. And people have to be ready, and people have to be financially responsible and be able to take care of themselves, and in a lot of ways do what the elites are doing for yourself. I mean, you mentioned all this gold. I mean, obviously they're not going to protect themselves with fiat. Put some paper under your mattress.
They
and
always have precious metals.
Yeah,
they know that
the empire
strategy
falls
for hundreds of years.
The fiat empire falls, and then you take out that paper money, more like currency than money, and what, are you going to use it to heat your home or wallpaper? I mean, it's not even good for wallpaper anymore. So.
The problem now, we just don't have the massive amount of overvaluation. It's higher than it ever was in 1929 currently, the overvaluation of the stock markets. You also have this massive, we talked about the debt apocalypse, Josh.
Yeah.
That is what's coming on top of everything. So you're having so many different types of levels. And of course, the bankers since 2008, they've created such a massive amounts of derivatives that are on top of everything to start with. So this whole thing, it's just going to come down really bad. And I think that the Fed and other central banks are going to do exactly what the Swiss Central Bank and the Bank of Japan is doing, buying up stocks to try to, save the market, which they're not. Like, they're going to be shareholders in some of the biggest companies in the world, a private corporation in the way of the Fed. or the Swiss National Bank is, of course, owned by the Swiss people. But the problem is that you're moving so hard towards like a communist state by doing that. Like
Absolutely.
you're nationalizing the ownership of private businesses and private entities, and suddenly voila, over just a period of time, because you had tried to save the market, now you suddenly are sitting on a communistic structure, basically.
Absolutely. It always goes either one way or another, and more often one way, either towards communism or either towards free markets. And it almost always goes towards communism because
Or
people,
fascism,
well,
which
when
is
people
another
are,
form of collectivism.
yeah, it's just all different flavors of collectivism. And when people are forced into debt, they are desperate. They're in servitude. The government loves indebted public. And, it's funny because I often say it so much, but I think it's worthy of saying in every one of my reports when we're talking about this subject is when the populace is shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, they have no choice but to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, and that puts them in perfect servitude. We see the return of collateralized debt obligations. We see the auto-backed securities. We see banks like Wells Fargo getting involved in this. We see, for example, BMO getting involved in this, as we've reported on before. We see all these banks getting into these derivatives. It's insane, and it's on a global scale. It's not just going to be in the United States. And on top of that, they push towards that cashless society. They're trying to find every way possible to basically enslave people in centralized debt.
Well, what's going to happen is, remember we did that video back for a year, I don't remember how long ago, on helicopter money. It was quite fun. You should watch it. But anyways, helicopter money is just basically depositing money into your bank account. Just in desperation to try to set the system to have you actually spend some money into the system. But the problem is, as they're printing all this helicopter money, you're going to have a mass amount of inflation coming on top of that. So all these ideas with negative interest rates or whatever it is, it's just a massively flawed, centrally planned system that they're trying to just... They're so desperate to doing anything to save the system, but it's not going to be saved. It's all going to collapse in on itself. And what's going to happen is you got to be prepared with your physical metals. You got to be prepared with food, water, shelter. Have all that, your guns, to protect yourself. You need to have that in place, because
You took my line.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah, what's going to happen is this whole thing is coming down. No matter how you think Donald Trump or anybody, and unfortunately for Donald Trump, that he took ownership of this like stock market, going through the roof.
It's sabotage.
Well, now they're gonna, of course, blame him.
Yeah, of course, and they're gonna blame small government, which the Trump administration is not small government, folks.
Oh my goodness,
it's huge. But I mean, it's
huge.
It's huge, and it all comes down to being able to have a scapegoat, and then say, well, see, we need big government to fix these problems, and then people will blindly go into it like sheep to the slaughter. And as you mentioned, food, water, shelter, defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. You'll also want to be able to have sound money, so you are able to buy things instead of, obviously, you don't want to be going out and hunting all the time, harvesting or stealing. And then on top of that, there's the blockchain. So be able to get out on with blockchain cryptocurrency technology like Bitcoin, etc., where people are able to keep their money away from the state and centralization, and are able to hide it so that it's not extorted from them like everything else is in life. And basically that's it. And John, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's it, Josh. We're done with this report, and just get prepared, guys, because this big thing is happening, and your pension plan is at risk here, because most of them have a lot of stocks in it.
Oh, absolutely. If you're young, especially, you aren't getting a pension, folks. So prepare yourself financially. It's incredibly important to be financially responsible. So thanks for watching, everyone. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube as they bring in the Anti-Defamation League to flag all of our content as hate speech, because, this is hate speech, apparently. And also check our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And check out John's book, Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World, ? Which you can find on Amazon.com. And don't forget to check me out at steemit.com as at Josh Sigurdsson. And of course, John at The Economic Truth. Steemit is the future of social media where you get paid in cryptocurrency. Steem, that is, via the upvote and demand of your post. So you could post what you are posting anyways on Facebook on Steemit, and you can make money via the upvotes. It's really an incredible innovation, and I hope more people get on there, as well as DTube, which is a YouTube alternative, which is connected to Steemit as well. I hope to see you there, and thanks for going into this with us, John. Until next time, this is Josh Sariton and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.